But now I would like to invite Dr. Peter Stro Schneider, who's been most patient with us and who's also joining us online to deliver his closing address. And just a brief introduction, Dr. Stro Schneider is chairman of the German Commission on the Future of Agriculture. It was created in July 2020 by then Chancellor Angela Merkel in order to facilitate dialogue and compromise between the agricultural sector and climate activists. And if I recall at the time, Angela Merkel said that your task as chairman of the Commission was like squaring a circle, Dr. Peter Stro Schneider. So please, the floor is yours to give your debrief on this report that is now on everybody's desk as we speak. So the ELO colleagues have just circulated that report. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Perfectly well, thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, and allow me to give my closing remarks in an indirect way by, as you expected, by briefly introducing you to the German Commissions on the Future of Agriculture and its results. It has indeed, this commission has been appointed by the German federal government 1.5 years ago or so, and the government, by appointing the Commission, reacted to the severe conflicts in the field of agri-environmental policies in Germany, which had become increasingly visible in the months before, in the year 2019. The demonstrations of farmers here in Berlin, the youth climate movement, so to say, tractors against pupil, and also have these severe conflicts been increasingly visible by the apocalyptical language used in this societal conflicts: dying farms, destruction of the climate, losses of biodiversity, and so forth. By appointing the Commission, the government also reacted to the changes of society's attitudes towards agriculture brought about by the major structural and economic changes in agriculture in rural areas, and by public debates on issues of environment. The Commission consisted of 31 representatives, not only from agriculture and environmental bodies, but also from industry, retailing, consumer protection, animal welfare, and academia, and adopted the final report unanimously, and that is important politically at least, unanimously on June 29th this year. The title of this final report is The Future of Agriculture, and the subtitle is, even more important, A Common Agenda. The report shows that it is possible to balance diverging interests sensibly and fairly, even in particular difficult areas. It marks the starting point of a new agenda, a market-oriented, ambitious and effective greening of the agro-food system. It is true that the Commission does not entirely reinvent agri-environmental policies, but it has indeed achieved the following. All representatives of the different interest groups lent their unanimous support to the compromises that were found, and at the same time these many detailed compromises were set within a systematic framework that should make it difficult to pick cherries, and a framework in which the compromises reinforce mutually each other. This was possible, this achievement was possible not least because we view the transformation towards a much more sustainable and economically viable agricultural production, we perceive it as part of the global changes that have gripped our entire civilization, and that will, after all, alter all forms of economic production, distribution, and consumption. Hence, this transformation needs to be tackled urgently, given the environmental and economic dimensions. The current erosion of resources by the sector will not work out in the long run, since it is not a sustainable farming practice. The Commission, therefore, started by reaching a common understanding that, and I quote, that continuing unchanged with today's agriculture and food system is not an option on environmental, animal ethical, and on economic grounds. The Commission regards itself as committed to a farming sector that makes an appropriate contribution to maintaining or creating attractive and vibrant rural areas. It consequently also bears social impacts in mind and aims to conserve natural resources and is committed to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Our common political principle is to aim for a market-based greening of the agro-food system. And this is intended to, and again I quote, intended to make the risks of this transformation manageable, provide planning certainties, and increase farmers' acceptance of the transformation. But above all, it is intended to significantly improve the environmental sustainability of Germany's agriculture and food system, secure its economic viability over time, and counter the relocations of production to regions with less stringent environmental and social standards, unquote. Therefore, we do not promote standardization, but a resilient diversity of agricultural production forms and structures. And we intend to make it as hard as possible to externalize production costs and hence to overexploit local and global public goods. To this end, it is of utmost importance that the positive effects of food production are boosted and that their negative external effects are reduced by making ecologically responsible practices economically attractive and hence economically successful. It is also crucial that state support for agriculture changes to an outcome-based approach and that it is stringently geared towards goals that benefit society as a whole, with, of course, corresponding prospects for the common agricultural policy. The Commission is convinced that the CAP must therefore be fundamentally realigned in a continuous series of clearly defined steps. Above all, this means that, and I quote, this unanimously appointed report, this means that over the course of the next two funding periods, starting in 2023, the current area-based direct payments under the first pillar of the CAP are to be gradually and completely transformed into payments that render it economically attractive to provide specific services benefiting societal goals, end quote. At the same time, the progress made in food and nutrition policy, as well as by improved sustainability of food production methods, also requires considerable adjustments by the farming sector. The proportions of the different production systems, livestock and crop production, then special crops and arable farming, then foodstuffs and feedstuffs, these proportions would shift and the sustainability levels of production methods and products would improve. The reason is that responsible, varied food consumption is part of a move towards more plant-based dietary choices and a more modern approaches to cooking and cuisine. And this move is the conviction of the Commission. This move can be promoted by reshaping food environments, especially in communal catering, by using policy instruments that improve market transparency, labelings and certificates, and by refocusing public food procurement. A related issue is, of course, the reduction of avoidable food waste, both on the production and the consumption side. The Commission believes that the wide range of measures for a necessary transformation of the agriculture and food system will exceed currently available public finances. It believes that at the same time, however, the transformation will cost much less than it would if the status quo were to be maintained, which through negative impacts on the environment, climate, biodiversity, and health, which accumulates costs in the high tens of billions to society as a whole only in Germany. It will therefore be crucial for the necessary transformation to have functioning markets which feature both product and production quality instead of merely competing on quantities and prices. But it should also be noted that there are other possibilities besides market revenues for food, other possibilities that could be used to finance the additional costs of a more ecologically sustainable agricultural sector. And these sources include, for example, earmarked consumption taxes and levies, and also revenues from trading in climate and environmental certificates. May I seize this opportunity to add that all this does not mean that markets which have been free so far would be regulated from now on. It means that current national, European, and international market regimes need to be further developed with regard to ecological compatibility. The Commission does not see the market and the state as dogmatic opposites, but as functionally equivalent forms of order whose relationships can change over time like communicating pipes. The more efficient these markets become in ecological terms, the more can regulatory law be returned to its proper function, namely to determine minimum standards and to make transgressions sanctionable. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in learning more about the Commission's recommendations, which I only briefly touched upon, please refer to the final report, which is available also in English. Those attending this event in Brussels will find a printed copy there. And in the internet, you will find it on the website of the federal government or via the link on the website of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. And of course, you are welcome to contact the Commission's office in Berlin, which will send you all the important information.
Thank you very much
I think
indeed.
it is fair to say, just 2 sentences, if you allow
Apologies.
me. I think it's fair to say that all in all, the Commission has developed paths for a comprehensive transformation towards a more sustainable agri-food system. These paths must be followed under great time pressure, and it's particularly urgent to start reorganizing the CAP immediately. And I'm fully aware of what the European Parliament has decided upon today. It's particularly urgent to start reorganizing the CAP immediately and to transform land-based subsidies into public service payments. Only if this major transformation succeeds will agriculture be able to keep up with other sectors, because after all, what to do is only part of a wider change that will challenge our societies to their limits, and which will therefore also bring new confrontations between different fields of politics. Agriculture and agricultural politics must prepare for this, and they must start now in a very concrete way. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Peter Stro Schneider, and thank you very much for your patience. And just to reiterate that...
No apologies needed.
We have the report here in the room, and for those of you watching online, it is, as Dr. Stro Schneider says, at the bottom of the website. It's available online as well. There's a link to that. So we're going to wrap up things now. We're going to wrap up proceedings. Allow me to thank my distinguished panelists, Eric, Tasso, Sebastian, Nathalie and Dick joining us from the Netherlands, and of course Dr. Peter Stro Schneider. I would also like to thank all of you for participating, and those of you joining us online for making this a very lively and interesting debate. I hope you will agree. A special mention to the team from the European Landowners Organization, Caroline, Elodie and Alberto, for making everything run so smoothly this evening, as well to our technicians, who we would be lost without. And a special word of thank you as well for Javier Ruiz from the WWF for his input throughout. So reminder again, for this and other events, go to the website, as Dr. Stro Schneider said, forumforagriculture.com. And until we meet again, take care.